They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorak.
The tariff war is heating up, and some conservatives are starting to get just a little bit squeamish. But you know what? Don't worry. We're going to take you through all of that today. Welcome to the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorak.
And so excited to be joined for the first time today by John Carney. He does great work for Breitbart. You should get all of your latest news at Breitbart.com. And I also want to tell you that you can sign up for what's really cool. And it's delivered right to your inbox. It's the Breitbart Business Digest. So you can get that at Breitbart.com. And you can follow John at Carney, Carney on X. John, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for, promoting the newsletter. It's terrific.
Absolutely. You know what? Okay, so I have to tell you, as someone who literally constantly preps radio shows and podcasts, it is so helpful to me to get those newsletters delivered to my inbox. So, whether you are just trying to keep up, it's a nice thing to have. So I'm happy to do it. And we're glad to have you today because holy moly, we got to start with this trade war, the tariffs going on. Now, President Trump just today hitting Canada with 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum tariffs, energy 25% essentially coming in from Canada. This is retaliatory. President Trump started the tariffs. Canada responded. I was in Arizona for spring training this weekend, and I was talking to a Canadian who was absolutely flipping out about America. And, what's going on? First of all, take us through. A lot of people are getting a little nervous. I say you have to trust President Trump's vision for right. I mean, we have to give this a chance to see if it works. But you're the expert, John. Let's go through this.
Sure. What happened was that we were scheduled to be putting on tariffs onto metals and basically aluminum and steel. We need to do this because the U.S. steel and aluminum industry is absolutely critical to national security. You cannot be the United States, which is the arsenal of democracy and freedom in the world, without a domestic steel and aluminum industry. We would not be able to make tanks, guns, bullets, bulletproof vests, everything you need.
Diet Coke cans.
Sorry. Protect the world without our domestic steel. So, and frankly, it's rooted in China. They dump a lot of steel onto the world market. That depresses world prices so much that our steel industry would vanish if we don't take some measure. So Canada responded to this. In fact, Ontario responded to this by saying they were going to raise the price of electricity that goes to U.S. households from Canada. Donald Trump then, so rather than say, yeah, what they really should have done is said, yeah, we get it, guys. You need a steel industry. We're sad that it's going to hurt our sales of steel into your country, but we understand why you're doing it. Instead, they reacted very aggressively and said, we are going to increase by 25% the cost of electricity that we sell to U.S. customers. Then they threatened, and if you retaliate against us, we will cut you off altogether. Donald Trump said, look, we are not going to allow you to do this. So our tariffs just went, like he used to say, the wall just got 10 feet higher.
Right.
And the tariffs just got 25% higher, right? We are now 50% tariffs. You have made a terrible mistake. We are going to remember, Canada doesn't just have, they tariff a lot of U.S. goods, particularly U.S. agricultural goods. They basically lock out U.S. dairy products altogether from their market. So they don't have open trade with us anyway. But this move to enact a pain on U.S. consumers, I think really has ticked off Donald Trump, but also shows something really important, which is that Canada is not a reliable source of vital goods to the U.S. That if they need to, in their own national interest, and I do not fault them for this, they should look out for Canada first, just like we look out for America first. they will hurt the U.S. They are willing to inflict harm on American consumers because of a policy dispute. So guess what? That reaffirms my belief that we can't rely on them for steel or aluminum, that we need our own domestic industries. So, ironically, they're actually proving Donald Trump's point by trying to harm U.S. consumers.
But how much of this do you think is politicking? Look, so they now have a new liberal leader, Mark Carney, right? As of 2 days ago. But the
No
liberal
relation, right, John?
say it again. No relation. Yeah, I was going to say.
Not my father, and it's not me. I am not the Prime Minister of Canada. At least if I am, they forgot to tell me.
So, we have the Canadians have a new leader of their Liberal Party because Justin Trudeau was just pathetic and needed to go, should have left a long time ago. But just because they have a new leader, they're still really hurting. Everybody fully expects the Conservatives are actually going to win when elections come around in the fall. So how much of this sort of saber rattling that they're doing and, expressing outrage against the United States is actually just a form of politicking and a way for the Liberals to sort of show themselves as strong in the eyes of their electorate?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think they do want to show that they're not pushovers. The Conservatives are having to do that too. If you listen to the rhetoric coming out of the often pretty typically America-friendly Conservative Party, and the Conservative leaders are very close to a lot of conservatives in the United States, but they sound very anti-American, which I get it. We are trying to reset. We're trying to force them to adopt policies we want. And the Canadians are saying, wait a minute, you can't force us to do things. And we say, well, actually, we are the biggest consumer economy in the entire world. You want access to our markets. We are going to use that leverage to get you to adopt U.S.-friendly policies. You might not like it, but that's the way it is going to be. The age of America just accepting the trade imbalances is over. So yes, I get it. It is. There's a lot of politics involved here. But again, I think it's a warning sign. If in the future we have a dispute with Canada over any policy, maybe they think our tax rate is too low, corporate tax rate's too low, and they think that's stealing businesses away from them, they could try to starve us of electricity. Maybe they don't like a war that we're getting into, or they like a war that we don't want to get into. They could again say, you have to do this or we won't sell you steel, or we won't sell you electricity. Or they say, we don't like your social policies, right? Maybe they think that the, trans athletes should be able to run against girls. We're going to inflict, Canada, in other words, is showing that they think they have a veto over the U.S. And I have a copy of the Constitution up here behind me, and it really doesn't have the Canadian veto in one of the articles.
It doesn't say okay with Canada's approval. I know. I guess what surprises me, John, and hopefully you can explain this, because some of these issues that have come up just watching President Trump, I think there's so much transparency that we actually all as a country are learning a lot as we're going through the last few weeks of Trump. I think many of us were surprised that parts of the country were so reliant on Canada for electricity. Where did that come from? When did that start? If you have any ideas about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Of the reason why we are dependent on Canadian electricity is because of our war on fossil fuels. Canada, we do not allow enough electricity to be produced in the U.S. because they say, oh no, it'll be dirty. Canada, particularly Ontario, has a giant hydroelectric power plant that produces too much electricity for Canada. They have to sell it to the U.S. So then, by the way, that is a feature that is true about a lot of the economies of the world. They are overproducing. They depend on the U.S. being their consumer. So that, the other thing is that the states like New York State, Minnesota, Michigan, get to claim that they are cleaning up the environment by relying on Canadian electricity, because it is hydroelectricity. So they say we are moving away from coal, natural gas provided electricity to hydroelectricity. We're not doing that ourselves. We're not letting anybody dam up our rivers, because again, the environmentalists won't let that happen. But we're taking it from Canada, and that's actually cleaner. So in a very strange way, the climate change activism of our regulators in the States has made us dependent on Canadian electricity, made us vulnerable to what Canada is doing right now.
So do you happen to know what percentage of our electricity comes from Canada?
I don't. I actually tried to figure that out. It varies, but it is, we do not need to, it's not like Canada has electricity buried under the ground that nobody else can get to, right? Electricity is generated. We can generate as much electricity as we need to. We have the natural resources. We do not need to be dependent on Canada. This is a lot like Europe made itself dependent on Russian natural gas. We made ourselves, for the very same reasons, for environmentalist reasons, dependent on Canadian electricity. We can do without it. We now probably will figure out very quickly how to do without it. And the Canadians may actually regret what they have done here because they alerted Americans to a vulnerability that we didn't know we had.
Yes.
There are, I think, and it's so interesting to watch kind of our party. First of all, the Democrats are sort of imploding. They're all over the place. But there are two issues where Republicans have always, I think, over the last couple of years had some disagreements. Ukraine, Russia, and the appropriate path with them. And then, of course, the idea of tariffs. You mentioned you live nearby Larry Kudlow. You talked to Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore is not really big into tariffs, yet he is such a Trump guy, and I love him. But President Trump ran on tariffs. He has led us in the right direction so far. While I can't tell you it's like on the top of my list of favorite things, I will tell you that I trust President Trump to see how this works. And I think we should, as a nation, realize that the system that we have in place now is not fair to Americans, not fair to American industry. He wants to bring some business back to the United States. We have to separate ourselves from China and other places and become self-reliant. So I'm on board. I mean, I think we have to do something different. You can't just try the same thing over and over again and hope for different results. What do you say to some conservatives who do say, I don't know, I don't like this, my stock market portfolio is going down? What do you say to them?
So yes, look, my stock portfolio is down as well. And nobody wants that to happen, but this will be good for the stock market and for the U.S. economy longer term. We were on an unsustainable path of huge trade deficits that could not be kept up. And trade deficits, by the way, and this is a very good message for conservative viewers to take in. Trade deficits actually trigger budget deficits because what happens is income leaks out of the United States. We're paying people for goods that more than they're paying for our goods. So therefore, the United States is actually getting poorer in terms of the amount of income available to pay Americans to do their jobs. So what do you do about that? You have rising unemployment and lowering incomes. Well, the government ends up stepping in. So this is one reason why we've had 50 years of trade deficits and budget deficits rising alongside it. If you are for a smaller budget deficit, if you are for a smaller government, you have to be for a smaller trade deficit. And you can argue about how we get there, what the best way to reduce the trade deficit is. Donald Trump thinks, and I agree with him, that that tariffs are a necessary tool to make this happen. But frankly, the conservatives who dominated Republican Party politics before Donald Trump's arrival had no plan to deal with the trade deficit. They pretended as if the connection that I just displayed to the growth of government and the growth of the budget deficit, they didn't even know that was really, they either didn't know out of ignorance that it was happening, or they were pretending that they didn't know that a huge source of growth of demand for government is the fact that we outsource so many jobs that we have to fill that in with growing government instead.
Hey guys, Jen here. And as we age, we all start to deal with some aches, some pains, maybe some thinning hair. Oh gosh, don't even get me started on the crow's feet, the wrinkling skin, even our nails start to get more brittle. But I want to tell you about this amazing product, Revive from Bright Core Nutrition. This is easy to mix, multi-collagen powder that helps to strengthen bones and joints. Plus, the best thing about Revive is that it works from the inside out. It's also going to help you rejuvenate your skin, help you grow back thicker, healthier hair, and strengthen those brittle nails. I've been using Revive every single day. I absolutely love it. It is easily mixing into any drink you want. I put the unflavored version in my coffee, mix the strawberry lemonade with water. It tastes great, easy to drink, easy to take, and easy to incorporate in your daily routine. And here's what makes Revive special. It contains 5 types of collagen, hyaluronic acid, biotin, and vitamin C, which all work synergistically to make you feel and look younger than ever. It's all natural, non-GMO, and we love it. 100% made in the USA. Now today, get a special offer using our code HAPPYWOMEN. You get 25% off with the code HAPPYWOMEN by going to mybrightcore.com/happywomen. And again, that's mybrightcore.com/happywomen. Or you can call Brightcore for up to 50% off and free shipping. You can give them a call right now at 888-927-5980, and their educated staff will make sure that Revive is right for you. 888-927-5980. That's 888-927-5980. Make sure to mention Happy Women to get your free shipping and your money-saving offer. And you want to go online, check out their product catalog, go to mybrightcore.com/happywomen. mybrightcore.com/happywomen. Use the code HAPPYWOMEN.
So it's been 50 days and it has been an absolute whirlwind of change and achievement and successes. It's really an incredible 50 days. But there's one little slice of this that I would love to talk about because I think it's a really intriguing topic. And that is what Trump is doing on cryptocurrency. So I will say this. I had a conversation about this a couple days ago with somebody, and I'm like, crypto, I don't even begin to understand it. And the person said to me, do you understand why your iPhone works the way it does? And he said, no, you don't. You don't need to understand how it works. You just need to know what it is. And it can be a great tool for conservatives because it can free you up from debanking. It can free you up from control by the banks. It can free you up from all the profit that we're feeding to these left-wing banks and credit card companies. But Trump did something quite extraordinary a couple days ago. He held a crypto summit. So what's Trump? Well, first of all, I'd love to know, how is his position different from Biden's? Because I only just started paying attention to this. And what do you think the ramifications are for the future?
So Trump is announcing the purpose of the crypto summit is an announcement that the Biden war on crypto is over. That the United States government is not opposed to people using crypto to buy and sell things, using crypto as a store of value, using crypto in however ways people want to develop innovation to use crypto. We are not going to be opposed to it. We are going to be supportive of it. I think this is great. It's a private sector developed exchange. It's a private sector developed store of value. Now, that doesn't mean that it will never go down or that it's going to take over the future. I'm not a huge crypto maximalist who says someday all currency will be crypto and everything will be. I'm not maybe, I'm open to the idea, but I've never been convinced of what's happening. But what he's saying is, this is America, right? People should be free to, want to follow this innovation, to want to invest in crypto, to want to be able to use it. And that is a big difference from what Joe Biden was doing, which was basically saying, crypto's too dangerous for the general public. We're not going to let them, we're going to do everything we can to stop them from touching it.
Yeah, they'd probably be all about a big digital currency. If anything, I think it just is kind of getting people used to the inevitable, right? I mean, I don't know how I feel about adjusting it to that. That's another conversation for another podcast, but it's pushing people in the direction that probably the world is going to be going, John.
Yeah, I think there's the future of crypto. It remains to be seen. When it was first developed, actually, what Katie was saying was right in that a lot of people said, well, this will free us from banks. Unfortunately, it turns out that we actually are developing secondary intermediary institutions. People generally don't actually hold their crypto themselves. They hold it through intermediaries, banks a lot of times, or companies that have sprung up to be the crypto equivalent of banks. Part of the reason for that is people sometimes forget their crypto key, right? Which means that they've lost their Bitcoins. That didn't matter so much when you had $1,000 of Bitcoin and you lost $1,000. That was painful. But when it's worth $1 million, that's really painful and crypto going up. I mean, there are cases where people have done things like thrown out an old laptop on which they held their Bitcoins. And then there's a guy in England trying to pay people to go through a garbage dump because there are billions of dollars of crypto.
That's what happened to Hunter Biden, right?
Well, I think about all these young men. So I ran a little mini poll the other night with my son, 25, and his best friend. And I said, do you guys have crypto? Do you have any crypto? And they both said yes. And they said everybody that they know, all the men that they know, all the guys that they know have crypto, none of the women, which I thought in itself was interesting. But then my next thought was, no 25-year-old guy thinks about writing his will, right? And, you just don't think anything's going to happen to you. And I thought the amount of crypto that's just going to disappear because these people don't think about telling anybody what their, password or their crypto is, right? It's kind of going to be a weird aspect of crypto.
There's definitely a lot that we haven't quite worked out, where, how to recover crypto that's accidentally or fraudulently transferred to somebody. There's how do you do that? Right now, if I wire money to somebody, the courts can order them to pay it back. That's harder to do with crypto. And so there is a lot of uncertainty about how this will develop. But I think it's good to have Donald Trump be there and saying, let's innovate together. Let's have this be done without the sort of we need to shut you down attitude that the Biden administration had. And look, even all the crypto people I know say there will be regulation around this. They're not trying to say let it just be anarchy. They actually want regulation because they want people to feel more comfortable in how to use this. They just want regulation that is fair and promotes innovation rather than that is basically just saying no at every chance it can get.
Well, and I think there's an important point to be made as well with how politicized the banks have become. I mean, so many people got burned by Bank of America, for example, turning over bank records for anybody who was in the Washington, D.C. area around January 6th. And, the other thing is, I think, the usurious interest rates that they charge. And another great use example for the advantage of crypto is somebody was telling me a story about traveling from Canada to Florida, buying a very expensive handbag for their wife. She didn't like it. They return it. So because they've made a purchase in a foreign currency and then they've had to do the return in foreign currency, they lost $600 because of the bank disadvantage you, right, in the exchange rates. If he had paid for that with crypto on a card, right, but using crypto, he would not have lost any money. So I don't know. I think it's very intriguing. I'm very curious to see where we go with this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that is one of the great use for it is low fee international transactions where you're not paying this exchange rate. You're not running a kind of exchange rate gamble where if I buy this today and then the exchange rate shifts, which is probably what happened to your friend, now I'm out of luck. Not having that there could be very useful to people. And the debanking point, I think, is really crucial. People already mistrusted banks, partly because of the financial crisis. Then we had what I will call the debanking crisis, where people were being debanked. I still think we're about to learn a lot more of this now that we have Trump people entering into the financial regulators. because I think what we'll discover is just as Biden was putting pressure on Twitter and Facebook to deplatform people, we're going to find that they were definitely putting, because I used to be a banking reporter. That's what I did at the Wall Street Journal for many years. When I talk to my friends in banking, they say the pressure, they're not willing to come out publicly yet, but they say the pressure was unbelievable on them to start cracking, to put pressure on customers, to get rid of customers. When your regulator says, we're really worried about, this customer, you cut them off because that regulator actually controls your fate if you're a bank. And so I think we'll discover, just as we did with the Twitter files, that there was immense pressure put on social media companies to deplatform people, that the banks, the credit card companies were facing the same kind of pressure.
It's insane. John, I also want to just switch gears with you a little bit because some of the other news today is about the job openings, the job reports that have come out. I have been hearing a lot of people, and I know these are all Democrat talking points, talk about, well, this is Trump's economy now. These are Trump's egg prices. These are they kind of leave out the fact that Biden murdered all the chickens before he left office, and that's why we're dealing with egg shortages. So is it fair to say that are we seeing any bits of Trump's economy yet, or is this still very much Biden's economy? And there are some good news. I guess there is a little bit of good news with the jobs as well, right?
Yeah. So look, I think it is almost for the first year of any presidency, a lot of what you have is legacy of what happened. There are things, though, that move a little faster than that. I do think that there is a bit of a Trump economy building right now. And one of the things that we've seen is that people are a little more confident about the economy than they were for most of Biden's administration. Consumer confidence is up from where it was a year ago. Business confidence is way up from where it was a year ago. So yes, things have gotten better in all the real-time measures. The job openings report showed that for the first time since July, we actually had significant openings in manufacturing. The Biden administration did very badly in improving employment in manufacturing, despite spending tens of billions of dollars to subsidize domestic manufacturing. It went nowhere. Mm-hmm. We had a contraction in manufacturing jobs. We had, for the first time since July, rising openings. We had rising hirings for the first time since September. And we had a rising quits rate, just a little bit. The reason why quits rate rising is good, a lot of people don't, they're like, well, why is it good if people are quitting their jobs? Well, it's because if people quit, it means that, meaning they voluntarily say to their boss, as the song says, take this job and shove it. People generally do that when they feel good about the economy because they think there's another job waiting for them, or frankly, they already have a job lined up. So a rising quits rate is an indicator that people are more confident in their ability to get another job and they're looking for a better job. So we had a rising quits rate also. All of those happened. That's the JOLTS report happens on the last business day of January. So that's how it's measured. So it all happened in the first couple weeks. But I would argue that I know a lot of conservatives will tell you, no, you can't blame anything on the president until he takes office. But I think you can blame and credit things for presidents before they take office because people start acting on the expected policies before they necessarily get enacted.
So one of the popular memes leading up to the election was showing the gas prices under President Trump's first term and the gas prices under Joe Biden. What do you think we can expect? Are gas prices going to come back to those good old days?
So I think they are going to come down. Donald Trump has said, first of all, if we have peace in Ukraine, Russia oil can come back online. Now, we don't buy a lot of oil in the U.S. from Russia, but it is a global market. So when you add supply, then you can actually lower the prices. I think Saudi Arabia is going to produce more under pressure from Donald Trump because he loves using the status of the United States as the global leader to get economic wins for the American people. So I think Saudi Arabia will produce, and then we have our own domestic production. We are removing the shackles that were keeping us from being able to produce more. So I think we will see lower prices in gasoline. I think people will feel very good about energy prices. Donald Trump is pretty laser focused, even more so than I've actually never seen a political leader this focused on energy prices. He really believes that that's the key to economic growth and to bringing down inflation.
Yeah. In our final few moments here with you, I would love to know in the next year or 2 years what you think things will look like under President Trump, seeing the tariffs as they are, seeing him go to bat and try to open up some drilling and get those gas prices down. What do you expect from him? I know we're going to get some job loss at least in the public sector with Elon Musk and Doge, but that's okay. That's probably a long time coming. So, what overall would you have us keep an eye out for?
So first of all, I'll start with the federal government. We are going to reduce the size of the federal government payrolls. That will be good for the economy. In the short term, it won't even be felt by the economy. It will be painful if you are a restaurant in Washington, D.C.
Right.
The reductions of federal employees will be painful. For the rest of the country, it will not. First of all, because we're not going to go down to, say, like 1776 levels of federal government employees. We're really talking about maybe in the first place, just getting us down to 2019, right? Where we were before COVID. The government was working, the government was functioning. We really didn't need to grow the government any further beyond that. I think we could go further than that. In terms of tariffs, I actually think a couple of years from now, tariffs will be lower, not just in the US, but around the globe. Because I think one of the things that Donald Trump is putting in place is these reciprocal tariffs, where we match other countries' tariffs. Their optimal solution is to lower their tariffs so that we lower ours. If they raise them, then we will raise ours. I think that brings down tariff levels. The exception to that is China. China has an unsustainable economic system. They cannot balance their trade. It depends on them dumping more goods than they are able to consume on the rest of the world. The U.S. can try to say, we're not going to deal with China, but then China will dump their goods on other countries. So I think eventually the world will start to come along with us in this idea that we have to economically isolate China. They are an unacceptable actor on national security, an unacceptable actor in international economics. I think right now, actually, frankly, the Trump administration is a little too optimistic. They believe they can drag China along. I don't think they'll be able to. And I think what we're going to discover is, no, China's going to respond very aggressively, but they're going to make what Canada is trying to do look like, a pillow fight. And we're going to have to say, well, okay, we get it. You don't want to deal with us. We're going to find a way to extricate ourselves from being so economically entangled with you.
Does that mean they want to go to war with us? I mean, that's the scary thing, is that
yes, it's scary.
We got COVID the last time President Trump put pressure on China. I don't think they want to
go to war with us. I pray that they, as Sting said, I hope the Chinese love their children too. But I think there is a peaceful way for us to say to them, we are going to have to go our separate ways. We are not, we know we can't change you. That's what we're going to learn. We are not trying to undermine your regime. We would love it to change. We'd love for your people to be free, but you have made it clear that you are not changing. And so therefore, we have irreconcilable differences. Let's have an amicable divorce. We'll do what we're doing with the free bloc of countries in the world. So it'll be, we will be the Numenor, the Rohan, the Gondor, to use a Middle Earth analogy, and you can be Mordor, and that's fine. We'll leave you be on your side of the mountain as long as you don't, come after our cities.
It was great chatting with you today. Such great information. And I want to remind you, you can get that email delivered. It's a newsletter Breitbart Business Digest. You can get stories delivered right to your inbox. John Carney does great work for Breitbart. Check them out each and every day, Breitbart.com. And you can follow John at Carney on X. And John, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
We had a great time. And it's so interesting because these are things that I think so many of people have questions about, especially when it comes to our financial future. So thank you. And don't forget, you can pick up Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, wherever you get your books. You can also find her on Twitter. Just search for Facebook, search for Catherine Gorka, or on X, Gorka Katie, and always katiegorka.org. And you can find me as well on Instagram and Facebook at Jennifer Horn, and on Truth and X at Jennifer Horn Radio. We absolutely appreciate those 5-star reviews. So keep sharing Happy Women with your friends and tell us that you like us. It helps. And you can connect with us on all of our platforms at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Happy Women. Thanks for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.